Welcome to the College Admission TV Higher Education Podcast. We sit down with passionate leaders in education for their thoughts and insights in today's world. We are excited to have as our guest Dr. Javier Flores, Vice President of Enrollment Management of the Texas Woman's University in Denton, Texas.
I've been working in higher education now for probably a good 15 years, helping with recruitment of traditional age students and also online students as well.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Now, how about you? I know you went to school at Texas Tech and New Mexico State. And so are you born and raised in Texas?
Born and raised in West Texas in a small town called Sonora, Texas, which is about an hour south of San Angelo, but it's right on Interstate 10. So if someone is driving from Los Angeles to Florida, and they get into Texas, it's really going to be in the center of Texas, not far from San Antonio. I was going to say between El Paso and San Antonio, but it's probably a little closer to San Antonio because there's not much near El Paso.
Okay, yeah. I used to fly in, and this may not, from a geo standpoint, it might not be close up. You have to tell me, but I used to fly into Lubbock, Texas years ago because we had a partner of ours that was based in Hobbs, New Mexico.
Yes.
So I would fly into Lubbock, Texas, and I'd drive about 3 hours through the Permian Basin,
right?
Yeah, to get to Hobbs, New Mexico.
Yeah. So you're talking about my hood, my neighborhood.
Okay.
After Texas Tech, my first job in higher ed was at New Mexico Junior College in Hobbs.
Oh, yeah.
Where I met my wife. We got married. We had our son, and then we headed over to the west to Las Cruces, and I earned a degree from New Mexico State, and then went over to Big Spring, Texas, and worked at Howard College, where I spent 13 years there. And while I was there, I earned my doctorate degree at Texas Tech.
Okay. Wow. So how long were you in Hobbs?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what a small world.
I know. So who was was it a company outside of higher ed that you were working with?
We were actually working with the University of the Southwest, so the school right across the street from you.
Yep.
Yeah. So we were
used to be College of the Southwest.
That's right. Yeah.
Joan Tucker was the president. So my wife Christy and Joan's daughter Jenny graduated Hobbs High School together, and we're good friends, remain in touch, and so forth.
Oh my goodness. Well, so I have to do name dropping just to happen to see if maybe you know anybody. So someone who's become a really good friend of mine, who I was introduced to when he was the Vice President of Enrollment Management at the University of the Southwest, is Brad Moser. So he was there. Yeah, he was the head of enrollment management. And then, who was the gentleman who was the provost at the time? I'm trying to remember his last name, but I remember it was Dennis A. Started with an A. But in any event, no, I worked with Southwest now probably about a good 3 or 4 years. So I was there at least once a year, if not a couple of times. So yeah, definitely a small world. My goodness.
So I don't know how recent that was, but was Scarlett Klaus the Dean of Education at the University of the Southwest?
No, she wasn't. I worked with them back in 2009. I mean, it's been a little while. It was 2009 to about 2012.
Yeah.
And so that was at a time where we helped them get online. So at my former stop, we helped schools really drive recruitment for online programs. We didn't build the programs, but we would do an assessment. So we would evaluate the market, evaluate programs, but specifically, for smaller institutions that were tuition dependent and really focused on sustainability. And so that's what we did for them. And, again, I've been so fortunate to be able to stay in touch with several people
Right.
at the school. And actually, since I worked with them, they've gone through two presidents just that retired. And so, yeah, again, I haven't worked with them probably, I guess we probably 8 or 9 years, but I remember those drives.
Yes. Yep. So I earned my doctorate degree from Texas Tech in '09. And so prior to that, I would drive from Big Spring to Lubbock during the weekday to take night classes. Weekends, I took online courses. I took ITV courses on reading myself. And my dissertation was actually on community colleges that were Hispanic serving institutions in online programs or had online programs. So it was it's huge, but I was able to narrow it down. And really, back then, the big discussion was that Hispanic students did not have the same access to online courses because they didn't have the connectivity. And so what I found was if they took online courses at school, the school was providing, especially if it was a rural school, they were providing the connection. And so the students did have access, but then it was really more about the money. It wasn't so much technology because they had to pay for the course, et cetera. So kind of a fascinating study.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more about that too, because we work with a number of schools. Now I know Texas Woman's University is a public institution,
right?
But we also we work with, and I do a number of podcasts with with smaller private institutions and smaller rural institutions, that are really, you think of, I've never been at Texas Woman's University, but when I think of Hobbs, if you get outside those city limits, it's kind of in the middle. It's kind of on its own.
It is, absolutely. Yeah, probably the only now with the horse racetrack in Hobbs.
Yeah, that's right.
That's going to put them in the map. But before, it was Lovington, Texas, and the name has escaped me. Brian Urlacher, the football player.
That is so funny, because I remember there were a couple of restaurants in particular, and you'd know them far better than I would, but I still remember they had a mural, I think, of Urlacher on one of the restaurants in Hobbs. So yeah, that's what I remember. Odessa is not too far from there, right?
No.
Okay, so
because
it was always.
So you can fly to get to Hobbs. You either fly into Lubbock as you did, or you fly into Midland Odessa Airport. But either way, you are driving to Hobbs.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Well, hey, thanks again for carving out time to do this. I really appreciate it. That's a great way to start off. I mean, how ironic. My goodness, our paths have definitely crossed, in certain aspects. So
more about that when you start asking the questions.
Well, I'll tell you, let's kick it off by let's talk about your journey a little bit. I'd love to understand, who are the mentors that have helped shape your path to where you are today?
Sure. So, my journey has been an interesting one. I am a first generation low socioeconomic student. My dad passed away in late 2013. And he was illiterate when he passed away, never learned how to read or write English or Spanish, and his English was very broken. My mom only went to the 8th grade and then didn't go on to school anymore. So, for a while, we lived in the abandoned schoolhouse that was the segregated school for Hispanic kids or Mexican American kids in Sonora, Texas. So the artifacts that were still left there were artifacts that truly shaped and impact my life and my journey. And so my mentors really started in high school. There was an English teacher who instilled in me that I could be anything I wanted to be, regardless of where I came from. And then when I got to Texas Tech University as an undergrad, there were two mentors, but really one was significant, and that was the Dean of Students, Dr. Judy Henry, who really took me under her wing, and I was involved in student organizations. I was in the Going Band for Raiderland my first year, and then I was a saddle tramp my second year, and then I joined the Women's Service Organization, and then I also was a member of the Student Foundation. And Dr. Henry, for seniors that were leaders on campus, would ask us to enroll in a 3-credit communication class that was really on leadership. And that was probably the pivotal turning point. I had someone in her say, "You need to work in higher ed." And I'm like, "Yeah, so tell me, you get paid? Like, people get paid for working in higher ed?" And she was like, "Yes, and you really have a knack for it." And I have my sister, her best friend has her husband that is the vice president for student services at New Mexico Junior College. And they're in need of a director of housing intramural sports. And I said, "Dr. Henry, I didn't play intramural sports. I was the guy that was on the sidelines, and I only lived in housing 1 year." And she said, "Look, you can organize events, you care about people, you'll be fine. Call Dr. Pruitt and interview with him." So Dr. Pruitt hired me fresh out of college, and then he became a mentor and was one that continued you really should continue in higher ed. And while I was at New Mexico Junior College with just a baccalaureate degree, I taught Spanish and then also taught poli-sci because they were a part of the North Central accreditation body. In that first year, New Mexico Junior College went through a bond election, and we also went through the accreditation. And Dr. Pruitt was placing me on all of these committees that were just brand new. The governance of higher ed was something that it was just brand new to me. And then I went on to New Mexico State to earn a master's degree. And while I was there, I worked for the Department of Housing and Res Life. And there were several individuals, but there was a gentleman by the name of Greg Block who really took me under his wing and helped me with just how to create activities and programs for students with student learning outcomes, even though it was not in the classroom. And then I went on to Howard College in Big Spring, Texas, where I served for 13 years. At that point, but 3 years into having worked at Howard College, the president, Dr. Cheryl Sparks, who also became a mentor of mine, said, "I want to make you a vice president, and I want you to serve on cabinet." And so I remember telling my wife when I was at New Mexico Junior College or at New Mexico State that all I wanted to do was earn my master's degree and be a dean of students like Dr. Henry, because never in my wildest dream did I think I would earn a baccalaureate degree. But then to earn a master's degree and be the dean of students, life was done, right? I found my dream job. And so then Dr. Sparks, Sherry Sparks, pulls me in and says, "I'm going to make you a vice president." And I'm like, talk about imposter syndrome. It's like, wait a minute, I'm the kid from the barrio from Sonora. I mean, English was my second language. What are you talking about? And look at my age. And of course, she said, none of those are factors. We need you. We see the leader in you and so forth. And so while I was at Howard, I earned my doctorate degree. I served as interim provost at the Southwest College for the Deaf and really took an interest of underserved students who I felt reflected my journey quite a bit. And certainly working at the community college, many of the students, my wife's journey was of a community college as well. And then when I earned my doctorate degree, Dr. Sparks made me the inaugural provost of the Howard College campus. We had a campus in San Angelo that had a provost, but as the provost for the Big Spring campus, I had prison education under me. I had dual credit under me, and I had a branch campus, a small one, in La Mesa, Texas. And so if you've driven from Lubbock to eastern New Mexico, then you probably at least have seen the sign of La Mesa, Texas. And so the service area for Howard College started in Dawson County, which is 2 counties away from Lubbock County, all the way to Kimball County, which is 2 counties away from Bexar County, which is San Antonio. So then after that, I worked at Angelo State for 9.5 years, served under President Dr. Brian J. May, who became even more of a mentor to me. And now I am here at Texas Women's University serving under Dr. Corrine Faden, who has also very quickly become a mentor.
Well, I'd imagine too, today you're a mentor for others, even if you don't want to admit it. I'm sure you are probably designated as, hey, this, Javier Flores is a mentor to me because of your history, your background, and probably this, just the story that you can tell.
Well, so when Mom passed away, she passed away 6 months after Dad did. What she told me was, don't ever forget where you came from, and always do for those who you were in their shoes and someone did for you. And some of the programs that I've created, like the Parent Association. So again, Mom's English was broken only in 8th grade education, but she became a part of the Parent Association at Texas Tech and really became a retention agent for Texas Tech. She would remind me that it was time to go see an academic advisor. She would remind me that it was time to register, and all of this information through newsletters. There was a care package waiting for me when I arrived in the residence halls at Texas Tech with her broken English that was written in a card saying, si se puede, and failure is not an option, and we're so proud of you. And then my very first birthday, I get a phone call from the lobby in the residence hall, and I think, I'm in trouble. What did I do? Or, again, I was so broke, Brad, that, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I haven't paid and they're going to kick me out for non-payment and so forth. Because you would see the signs in the residence halls that, payments are due and consequences. And as much as I love Texas Tech, in my freshman orientation, I received the traditional look to the left, look to the right, look in front of you, and look behind you, because those people are not going to be there. And you know what? That person was right, which is very different from the message that I give students now, because I tell them, look to the left, look to the right, look in front of you, and look behind you. These are your colleagues that you will bond together as peers, and you will cross the stage together because we're that committed to all of you. Mom there was a birthday cake waiting for me in the lobby, and she had read that food service would allow people. And so she sent in the money order. with the order form, and there was my birthday cake.
Wow. Tell me a little bit about Texas Woman's University. Tell me a little bit about the history and talk a little bit about why. I mean, who attends and why would a student attend Texas Woman's University?
Educate a woman, empower the world is our purpose. Created in 1901, and this was after we had already asked. We see how I take credit for what our founders did. So there were individuals that wanted a institution in the state of Texas that allowed women to enroll. Because you think about the public institutions, and one of the peer institutions that became kind of the big brother was Texas A&M, and they did not allow women for many, many years. But the legislators in the late 1800s would not pass a bill. And so in 1901, the bill passed, and the vote was very, very tight. So you think about 1901 and when women had the right to vote, and how our students and our alumnus were leaders and were pushing for change. And so that's the why, right? We at Texas Women's University, leadership, and our mascot is the Pioneers. We are here to give women, and now men as well. We are a co-ed university. It took us 93 years. But in 1994, we became co-ed. We had accepted men back in 1972 in a graduate program in nursing. We're the leaders in nursing in the state of Texas and also in the nation. We enroll students from all 50 states. We enroll students from almost all 254 counties in Texas, and we enroll students from 164 foreign countries as well. And so we not only give our students the education that they need and the knowledge that they need, but we give them the leadership skills that they need to be able to be leaders in their communities, in their work teams, and around the nation. We have alum that are in the halls of Congress. We have alums that are in the military with stars on their shoulders. And we have alum that are in NASA and classrooms, schools, colleges, universities, all over.
Well, it looks like, I often hear the I guess you could call it a phrase, meet students where they are. And that can be in a number of different forms. But from what just on my research about Texas Women's University, that does come in a number of different forms, including providing on-campus learning, on-campus programs, but as well as online as well on the undergraduate and graduate side. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So the main campus is here in Denton, and then we have two health institutes, one in Dallas and one in Houston. But we have a very vibrant distance ed program that dates back to even before online and before technology. I mean, we used to place faculty members on a train and send them to the hinterlands of Texas to provide education, and then of course, with distance education in the 1960s and 70s, public television became important. And so our alum were already working in some of the public education television studios around the Metroplex. And so, again, delivering education, I said English was my second language, and I learned through Captain Kangaroo. Well, Texas Women's University was already using different resources back in the 60s and 70s to deliver education at a distance.
Well, and you're a very diverse institution. And something that I hear oftentimes from senior administrators like yourself from different institutions across the country is, diversity and inclusion is essential, but it doesn't mean a lot without belonging. So, can you talk about how Texas Women's University really allows their students to feel like that they belong?
Absolutely. So you're absolutely right. We are the fifth most diverse university in the United States. We are the only public women purpose system, because we have become a system now. With our campus in Houston and Dallas, we're working on becoming component universities. And so not only can you walk through any of our campus or sit in a classroom online or face to face, and our students are diverse, but we also have a very diverse faculty and staff here. Our chancellor president is originally from Belgium and speaks 5 different languages. And we're a Hispanic serving institution and just received the seal of Excelencia. And we translate almost everything. She and I went and did a financial aid workshop for non-English speaking parents. My team is very aware that we have to deliver the information in different ways of communication, different languages, and not just English and not just Spanish, but other languages as well. And so there's many things that we do. We award over $17 million in scholarships. Our top 5 states that enroll students, of course, Oklahoma, because they're right next to us, but then California, Florida, North Carolina, and then Louisiana. So again, to me, it makes sense, Oklahoma and Louisiana, because they border where we have our locations. But you look at some of the other states and I'm like, what in the world? And it's some of the programs that we offer, especially those that we offer online. We have a nationally renowned Library of Science, a master's program, graduate program. Well, almost every accrediting body says that you have to have degreed librarians. And so, when you look at degree programs that Texas Women was offering women, because again, we were trying to place individuals where they could secure jobs, but also leadership. So nursing, library science, education, those are legacy programs that we have.
So let's talk a little bit about career paths. Today you find jobs that may not exist in 5 or 10 years. And then on that flip side, 5 or 10 years from now, there's going to be jobs in place that don't exist today. So how do you make sure that students are career ready?
Well, first of all, we pride ourselves in that our students, in terms of social mobility, are able to move from one social stratosphere to another upon completion of their degree, be it an undergrad or a grad. We use data to tell us, and we know exactly where our students are going. We also make sure that the curriculum is aligned and is able to get our students into the workforce. But we're also very creative. We just secured a $15 million donation to open the School of Aviation Science. And when you look at pilots in the United States, only 4% of all your pilots are females. And the other thing happening is there's a large percentage of pilots that are getting ready to retire. And so we have this huge gap. So identifying places where we can place our graduates and they automatically have jobs. And I mean, you look at pilots, if you're an international pilot, you are in the upper six figures of a job. And so we know that our students can do well. And it's not only getting them work ready, having them do internships and making sure that our career office is working with businesses as well. But our chancellor has also done many editorials about the wages for women still continue to be lower than wages for men for some similar jobs. And so really working with our elected officials to say, we have to, access is only one, but then we also have to make sure that salaries are there for our students, because then our students will want to be work ready, right? They will come and they'll make the investment of going to class, doing the internships, even if those internships are not paid for by the company that they work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, is there confusion since you are co-ed now? Is there confusion over the name?
Well, yes. And and I'll tell you where I don't know that there's confusion, but we as men have this early on, we have this confidence level, and I still go out and recruit. So for undergraduate programs, if I'm recruiting at high schools, sometimes I'll have young men come up to the table and then I'm like, so tell me what you know about Texas Women's University. And immediately it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to come to your table. And I'm like, we're co-ed. By that point, they're halfway down to the next table and so forth. But then you look at graduate programs, and in graduate programs, you have men saying, all right, so what program do you have? And your doctorate in nursing is nationally renowned. Your physical therapy doctorate program, your occupational therapy program, your psychology, and it goes on and on and on, that we have nationally renowned programs. And they're like, so I can apply, right? And like, I'll have a good chance. And we're like, well, it's all about grades. But I think there could be some confusion. Certainly, if you're driving down Interstate 35 and you see one of our billboards and you see Texas Women's University, we have to be intentional either with pictures or with words that say we are co-ed.
Absolutely. And I would imagine, too, you start driving students to campus. And when you do that, I would imagine that conversion rate of prospective student to student really goes up.
Oh, absolutely, it does. So last year, we had an initiative where we sent our bus, it's basically a charter bus, to the McAllen, South Texas area. And we ended up enrolling 18 students. So we brought them to a recruiting event, and then we brought students back for orientation, then with their parents, because again, I am convinced we have to have parents engage regardless of the parent's educational level. And so when we bring parents on campus and they see how safe campus is, and it feels private, but it's at a cost of a public institution, the fourth most affordable in the state of Texas. We just implemented last year our zero tuition guarantee program. So if you receive a Pell Grant of any amount, or if you have to submit the Texas application for financial aid because you don't meet U.S. citizen requirements, then we still give you the zero tuition guarantee, as long as you're a Texas resident.
So you said, do you still give tours? I think you had mentioned that. You still give tours and get out with prospective students and families. You're part of that, right? Giving the tours of the campus? What's what's that number one question that you get from students?
So typically, what's the admission standards and what's the cost? Or it may be what's the cost and then what's the standard?
Now, is that question different from parents?
So for parents, it's really what's the cost and is it safe? Or is it safe and then what's the cost?
And I would imagine, I mean, with your background and with your story, the advantages that you have in talking to prospective students and families are pretty wide. I mean, the advantages compared to others that maybe haven't been through your journey. That's got to be so powerful to be able to to tell the story and say, "Hey, I was in your shoes. I was there."
Well, it is, and it is a powerful story, but trust is built on, do I deliver what I say? And so, so my story is great, and someone helped propel me along. And so when I say I and we, the team here at Texas Women's University, are going to propel you along, I say that with confidence because I know the commitment from the faculty and staff from every level. But that really is important. If we didn't have that, the story would just be another story.
Yeah. So now, where do you see Texas Women's University in the next 5 years, the next 10 years?
Well, I see us being truly a system. I see us hitting enrollment of 20,000 by 2028, and primarily because the chancellor has charged me with with that number. And I remember when I arrived at Angelo State in 2012, the chancellor of the Texas Tech University system at that point said, "Hey, you need to get us to 10,000 by 2020." And by 2017, we were at 10,000. So we met that 3 years ahead. I don't know that I'm going to meet that 3 years ahead because 3 years ahead of 2028 is 2025, and we're already going into 2024. But I also just see that we will continue to be a transformational university. We will be offering degrees, just as you mentioned earlier, that there are jobs that we have no idea of what those jobs are going to be. But what we do know is that innovation, creativity, and hard work are still the ingredients that if we can instill that in students when they leave us, they will be the ones that are creating these new jobs and are changing the workforce and reacting to it and doing the things that they need to do. I think that we will be well known throughout the state of Texas. We are opening up empowerment centers, which is a collaboration between enrollment management and the J. Nelson Institute for Women's Leadership, where we focus on entrepreneurship, especially in rural areas of Texas. And then we also focus on leadership. And then we focused, it was policy and politics, but really now it's women in government. But again, we're a co-ed university and we will help anyone. But through the J. Nelson Institute for Women's Leadership, we are giving grants to individuals who want to be entrepreneurials. And then we put coaches with them to help them be successful in their business. And if someone wants to learn on how they can run for school board or county commissioner or governor or whatever, we help them with that process as well.
Well, absolutely. Well, Dr. Javier Flores, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I haven't bored you.
No, not at all. I feel like we could continue to talk. I'll tell you, this could keep going. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for all that you do and having individuals. I've listened to some of the other podcasts, and certainly I think it's wonderful to be able to let individuals know what institutions of higher education are doing in the United States. They are still, we live in the best country in the world, and it's the best country because you can go from the barrio to being whatever. I mean, look at me, a vice president at a wonderful university in the great state of Texas. And that would not be possible if I didn't live in the United States and had so many that have gone before me and been able to leave footsteps that I've been able to follow and maybe create some of my own.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, I'll tell you something. You energize me. I mean, you really do. So thank you.
All right. Well, have a great one.
You too. Take care.
Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the College Admission TV Presidential Podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll bring you another insightful conversation with a distinguished leader in higher education.